Hey everybody, welcome back. And welcome back to our series on snake behavior. Today's episode is going to be on the dreaded food response, especially if you've got larger snakes, reticulated pythons, burms, things of that nature. It's definitely something that we need to be able to learn how to recognize. And it can be, when it comes to feeding time, one of the most dangerous times to interact with our animals. So there's some things that we need to go into. We're going to go into some behavioral characteristics. And today's feeding day for the big snakes. So we're going to go upstairs here in a second. The rabbits have done thawed out. We're going to bring them down here and we're going to do a feeding for all of our big snakes and show you guys how I go about it and let you guys see their behaviors and how it changes when food gets into the equation today on Intrepid Exotics. Whether you're a lifelong keeper or just getting started, help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics. Real quick before we get started, if you guys aren't already USARK members, you can always find the link to usark.org down in the description of all my videos. Strongly encourage you guys to go on, look at the situations that they're bringing to our attention for all of us to deal with. They've really been instrumental in helping us prevent a lot of bad reptile legislation. Very important that we support them. So get down there, do your thing. Memberships aren't bad, numbers matter. We definitely need their help and they need our help. So, like I said, always down in the description of all my videos. And if you guys stick around towards the end, I'm going to have some footage in there of our 17-foot female retic making quick work of about a 7-8 pound rabbit. Now, when we're talking about food responses with snakes, this is one of the things that comes up when we talk about tap training and hook training and so forth, because it all starts from our animals being ambush predators. Our snakes, as we're looking at their behavior, it can be difficult to tell what's actually going on in their head. It can be difficult to look at them and say, okay, is this snake sleeping? Or is it just sitting there waiting on a meal? And as soon as my hand goes into that enclosure, it's going to latch onto it thinking that it just found a meal. And they don't do it maliciously. We got to understand that they've got some senses that we really don't have. They've got vision. It's not as acute as ours in a lot of respects. They can feel vibrations. And a lot of people say that since they don't have ears, they can't hear, but they can pick up vibrations, I'm going to guess, better than we can, because the bones in their inner ear, the same ones that we use to hear with, and of course the sounds, it goes through our eardrums and it helps us to hear things more clearly. One of their inner ear bones actually attaches to their lower jawbone. So as they're down there on the ground, those vibrations that go into their jawbone are actually going straight to the organs that allow them to hear. They've also got their heat pits, which enables them to see heat, essentially. So it can be pitch black. They won't be able to see anything with their eyes, but they'll still be able to pick up on the heat from your hand. And being ambush predators, when they pick up on that, if they're actively looking for food, the motion, the heat, all of that stuff can really cause a situation. I've taken a couple food response bites before. They're not pretty. And you'll see when we feed today that when these snakes are intent, when they figure out that that's a meal and they get a hold of it, they don't want to let go. And it's the same thing when we go in to work with them. We've got to use that hook and we've got to go in there and just kind of snap them out of it. Some snakes, you can go in and you can just tap them a little bit and you can kind of see their demeanor change. And you can tell that food response is off. Other snakes, it may be more difficult. There's some retics out there that are just really, really intent on biting anything they want to eat. And it can take a little bit of effort to get them off. So it's just another one of those things of watching their behavior. Now, my animals are so used to seeing me down here and they're so used to getting handled and enclosures getting opened up and stuff like that. They're really good about their food responses. And, I don't have too many instances where I open up the door and I've got them sailing out. So I'm pretty lucky in that respect. But we're going to see today, I'm just going to go ahead and start feeding with these guys. I've got the rabbits thawed out. I've got them sitting down here. And as you can see, different sizes. I've got, for the two big retics, probably 6 to 7 pound rabbits. The burmese and the other smaller retics right here have got a little bit smaller meals. The way I do this with these guys is I will take them out in the morning, throw them in a big sink of hot water, and just let them sit there the day while I'm at work. Immediately come home, drain the water, put more hot water in there, let them sit for a little while. Rabbits takes a little bit longer because that fur is really an insulator. You'd be surprised how when you go into the sink, you can, that water can be nice and hot, and you'll go in and you'll push into the inside of the rabbit and you'll still feel cold in there because it insulates so well. So, you've got to kind of massage them a little bit, put your fingers down inside their armpits and kind of push up into their guts a little bit and make sure that you're not feeling anything like crackles of ice, or, making sure that the inside of the animal feels warm, because they've got to be warm all the way through. You definitely don't want to just have the outside of them warm and then the inside of them still frozen and then the snake eats it. It can be really bad for them to try and manage that. Exothermic animals don't deal well with popsicles. So we want to make sure that they're completely thawed out when we put them in there. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, a lot of folks don't like to do feeding videos with their animals. I don't see a problem with it when it's done for educational purposes. It's kind of one of those things that can be touchy with some folks. There's a lot of people out there that keep pet rabbits, and they may not appreciate seeing that rabbit being fed off to an animal like this in the manner that it is, because they've got to be fed whole, and they're really easily recognizable. But for the sake of educational purposes here, when we're talking about behavior and how to do it right, there's no other way to do it than to actually just go out, feed the animals. One thing that I do, and I've got a couple other videos on this that I can link in the end screen if you like, is I feed all of my animals frozen thawed or pre-killed prey. It is safer for a myriad of reasons, and I'm not going to go into those because this is not a live versus frozen conversation here. But I will link the video where I talk about it in the end screen so you guys can go and see why I do that. So everything's frozen thawed, for everything from a little baby hognose over here all the way up to my 17-foot retic back here. I don't want them to get hurt, and a fighting animal can hurt your animals, and I would feel terrible if I threw a live rabbit in there with them and it got a hold of one leg and it used the other leg to kick her eye out or something like that. Just a bad situation all the way around. Now, I want to show you guys the most important tool to have on hand when you're feeding your snakes, and that is a good pair of feeding tongs. If you've got bigger snakes, do not feed them by hand. It's such a good way to get bit. Even experienced keepers that have been doing this stuff for years might get lazy, might grab a rabbit by the feet and, lean it in there. I've seen guys that have been doing this stuff for years, that have been teaching it for years, get bit feeding because they didn't take the time to grab their tongs. A lot of times these prey items, although we try and keep them warm, just like today, I'm sitting here talking, they're sitting on the counter, so they're cooling off a little bit as we speak. My hand is going to be hotter than those rabbits are. Now, it's perfectly fine for the snakes if they're a little bit cooler and so forth. If you've got snakes that have got a hard time eating, we will recommend, making sure that you up the temperature really well so that when you offer that prey item, they pick up on that heat. But a lot of snakes, once they've been into the routine and so forth, they know what the prey item is. They can pick up on it, and it doesn't need to be that hot. But you do definitely want to make sure that it's warm. Like I said, you only really pay particular attention to it if they're having a hard time getting them to eat or something like that. Then having that temperature up a bit is going to help a lot. And another point too is you'll hear people talk about not using hot water to warm up your animals. You don't want to boil them. You don't want to put them in a microwave or anything like that. But like the tap water at my house, I can turn the hot water all the way on and hold my hands in it. It's not going to cook the animal. It's not going to cook my hands when I hold them underneath it. Even if it's a little bit warm to where it's scalding or something like that, the water is going to cool off. That heat transfer happens so fast when you put a frozen rabbit in there that you're not going to cook it. All that extra temperature does is just kind of help suck that suck that cold out of there a little bit better. So you don't have to worry about it. Another thing that people will talk about too when we talk about feeding is some people prefer to have their animals completely dry. They don't want them wet at all. And it's a preference. It's whatever you want, really. If you think about it, maybe one of these animals will do it today. They may drag it right into their water bowl and eat it there. Reticulated pythons, anacondas, burmese, they live in wet areas, things like that. It's not uncommon to see them taking an animal, wrapping them up in the water, and everything's just saturated. You really don't have to focus too much on that. I don't want them soaking soppy wet. It's just, just for cleanliness, just for cleanliness reasons. But you don't have to stress that. If you want to feed them perfectly dry to them, that's cool. If they're a little bit wet, honestly, I think it helps them take it down a little bit easier. And another thing to keep in mind too is, of course, they're going to benefit from the water. You want to make sure too, when you're feeding, that all their water bowls are all filled up, because after they eat, they will drink a lot of fluids. I've seen retics sit there and empty out a water bowl pretty much right after they've eaten. So you want to make sure they've got good fresh water in there. So let's go ahead and get busy here. I'm going to start with the two smaller males up top here, and kind of talk through this stuff as we go. Now this little guy, you see the way he's jumping up the glass like that? There's a really good chance that he knows what time it is. Actually, I'm going to hold this like this. This is one of the reasons too why I like the sliding glass doors, because I can come in here, my hands don't have to be anywhere near it, and come in, just offer it through the glass like that, wiggle it a little bit. As soon as he sees what's going on, he wraps it up. And this is what will happen if your hand's in there and they're mistaking that for food. A lot of times, if you start pulling on this thing, you'll see them start wrapping it up like that. It's the same way as when you start pulling your hand away. When they do that, they're going to start wrapping it up. And believe me, when you get a 16-foot snake wrapped around you and it thinks you're food, bad day. Now, one thing, and you'll see this a lot, when you've got the animal kind of comes out of the enclosure, typically you're pretty safe to just come in here, push them back, lift them up a little bit, push them back into the enclosure, because once they get latched onto that, they don't want to let it go. And somebody else already knows what time it is. You can probably see this guy right here. Let me see. Yeah, you should be able to. I'm going to come around and get his. Really? We're doing an enclosure cleaning too. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but Monty is letting out the biggest fart you've ever heard. So, let me see if I can switch this over. Again, like I said, these feeding tongs will save your hands in no uncertain terms. And again, I really like these sliding door enclosures because I can come in here and you can see his behavior right now, just sitting there. It could be like any other day. There you go, just enough to get the prey item in there. And he's all ready to eat. He's not going to do anything dramatic. Let's see, as far as determining food response, you can see, their behaviors aren't really a whole lot different when they see the prey item coming and they know it's time to eat than it is normally. The same way he came up towards the glass is the same way he's going to come up towards the glass when he just sees me open it up and it's time to interact. Now, that's a big reason and we'll go into, you know, a lot of detail in hook training and tap training and stuff like that, and how to use it in this series. We've got a lot of videos on it right now, but like I said, I want this whole series to encapsulate pretty much any topic that, you know, you might want to know about keeping these guys. So it's all in one place, easy to find and all that. So you don't see anything that really looks out of the ordinary. She always does this, and I always love feeding this girl, and I'm going to show you guys. This is about, these heavier rabbits right here can get kind of rough to hold up. This is about a 7-pound rabbit. At times like these, you know, it's really important that you don't use your hand to open that door with. We're going to hold this out. I'm going to let her come out after it. Come on. I'm out after the rabbit, not me. Whoa, hello. God. And see, we'll pull on it a little bit. She thinks like it's trying to get away. Ah, man. Put this down so you can see. But yeah, pulling on this rabbit. She thinks it's trying to get away, so she throws those coils around it like that. And again, we're just going to pick her right up by the coils and set her in the enclosure. God, she's heavy. And don't get your hand stuck in her. You got to be careful of that. They will definitely wrap your hand up in there too. That's a good girl. That's something that's kind of unique about my animals too, and you'll see it when I feed a lot of the smaller snakes. My berm, even a Sri Lankan now, the green tree python, Chloe, the little retic upstairs, they tend to be kind of cautious when it comes time to eat. You can see how when I first offered her food, she didn't just immediately come out and slam it as soon as the door opened up, because so often when I open up the door, there's not food, it's a handling opportunity. So she does take the time, and you can see her wheels turning to really just make sure that she's doing the right thing and recognizing, okay, yeah, that's food, it's time to eat. So it can be manageable. It just takes a little bit of work and you know, spending the time with your animals and so forth. So let's go over here and we will feed Tigger in the berm. And I'm going to start on top with Apollo, our Burmese here. Now with him, he may do it this time, he may not. There's times where he gets so used to getting out and interacting that he will literally like push right past the food just to come out and start crawling around. So we'll see how he does. He may go ahead and take it like a champ. We'll see. But these are our two bigger males. Like I said, he's our Burmese, and we'll see how he does. Typically what I like to do is if he's already up there by the glass, I open it up just enough that the prey item takes up the whole door. And clearly it's going to take him a second to figure out what's going on. Oh, there we go. I don't care how many times you do this, man, it always makes you jump a little bit when they hit. So, same thing with him. Jerk that thing around a little bit. You see him start throwing them coils up. It is really impressive because when it comes time to eat, these guys really, really lock up on them prey items. And it's something that you don't see all the time when you're handling them. Yeah, they may hang on a little bit just to hang on to keep from falling if you got them. But feeding time is an entirely different story. So, get that wedge up there. Now Tigger, sitting behind his water bowl right there. Let me get this tied down. You guys will notice the wedge and the tie downs on this plastic enclosure. This is the one bigger enclosure that I didn't build. So the tracks are really not great for holding this snake in. This snake knows how to pop that glass right off of there. You know, that's something you got to watch on these PVC enclosures, is these tracks and the light plastic windows on them. a snake can just throw a hip into it and knock that thing right off the track. So I've got the thing. I mounted these cabinet handles on here. I tie it down so that it can't come up. And right here in the middle, I got a wedge right there. So there's no way that he's going to be able to get in there and push them things off the track. So let's see if Tigger's going to eat today. He should. This is one of my, this bigger male right here is really good at refusing. I mean, he's refused for 6 months at a time before. Let's see what he does. I don't see him cruising right now, so there's a likelihood he might refuse. Whoop. Hey, get back here. Nobody saw that. The epitome of an ambush predator with him. That goofball. It's back. So yeah, he was, his head was back behind his water back there. And you can see I kind of put that thing out there a little bit, and he wasn't going to come out and chase it. As soon as I got close enough to it, pop. And so yeah, apparently he was ready to eat. But he's pretty impressive when he decides to put up a fight. Pulling that thing is going to do no good. He's got, 12 feet of snake curled up on the other side of his water bowl. So. And you don't really want to get into the habit too, like I did, of getting down there and sticking your head into the enclosure, especially at feeding time. But I caught a glimpse of where he was at. And he was far enough back to where, I had time to just get a glimpse and get out of there. Just to see where he was at for the sake of the video. So, yeah, I don't advise that at all. So, you'll see a lot of us guys that have kept for a long time doing things that we would never recommend anybody else do. But we at least got to put the disclaimer out there. And I would be remiss if I didn't pay a little bit of attention to Niles. We've got another video coming with our Nile monitor pretty soon. And it's going to be about him biting me the other day. I was in here just interacting with him. There was no food involved or anything. And he thought that was a really good opportunity to take a bite out of my wrist. I just happened to be filming the interaction and caught it on camera. So I'm going to be putting out a video on what Nile monitor bites are really like and how we manage them, stuff like that. So definitely hang out for that one. It'll be coming soon. In the meantime, make sure you're getting subscribed to the channel, get notified. Feel free to jump down in the comments, add anything that I may have missed. I'm sure I forgot something. I always shoot right off the cuff with these things. Don't do any scripting. But I thought you guys would like to see a little bit of feeding, kind of some better practices. And I wanted to make this one pretty much completely about feeding. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and do another one that goes really deep into tap training, hook training, and all that other stuff. Just know that that's a really big part of managing food responses. So you guys have an outstanding rest of the week, and we will see you next time on Intrepid Exotics.